Today I'll show you how I embellish my printed artwork. Adding some metallic paint to your prints is a nice way to make a little more money, and buyers like it as well because it can be a bit more special and unique than a plain print. First, I get my prints ready. If you don't do your own printing, then don't worry about this step. This is the paper that I use. Go ahead and pause if you want the details. The quality is nice. I would recommend this style of paper for printing art even if you don't want to embellish it. And of course, any products I show will be somewhere in the description. One thing to note is this paper has only one printable side, so it's important to keep track of which side you are printing on. And here is the printer that I use. I don't think you can get it new anymore, but something in the same family would likely work just as well. Next, I set up my painting area. Always clean any area that your products will touch to help them stay in good condition. I use the Calero Pearl Colors paint for my embellishments. You could also use metallic acrylic paint, which would be a bit cheaper. The texture of this paint and acrylic paint is pretty different though, so whichever paint you use, be sure to practice getting the right consistency. For painting embellishments, I have 3 different brush sizes. They are all round brushes that come to a slight point and they're all on the smaller end. For my larger 8x10 prints, I use a size 4. For my medium-sized prints, which are 5x7 inches, I use this size 1. And then for my smallest size, which is a 4x6 inch postcard, I use this little half-size guy. With this type of paint, it's very important that you activate it before using it, which means letting the water sit on it for about 5 minutes so that you can get the right consistency. The first thing I do when I'm embellishing a new print is pull out my test prints from when I first made that print. It helps so that you don't waste the real ones when you're first figuring out what to embellish. You could also plan it out in a sketch or digitally if you want, but I like to see how it looks on the real thing. This is also a good way to get the hang of the consistency of your paint and making sure that it's not too watery like it is in the video right now. For painting small areas, it'll just bleed out a little bit, but on a larger area, this would be bad because the excess moisture will cause the paper to break down and your print will be ruined. It's a good idea to keep a test page or a towel off to the side so that you can dab the excess water off of your brush before you apply it to your print. My next tip is to take your time and think about the brush strokes that you're using. Varying the pressure that you use with your brush will give really nice results. And definitely don't rush on this. When you mess up on one of these prints, you're losing out on money that you could have made from selling it. Don't stress out too much though, just try and enjoy the process, make a thing of it, put on some relaxing music, and just try and enjoy yourself. My next tip is to be careful about how you're resting your hands. These paints smear easily, so work from the opposite side of your dominant hand or turn the page as needed, whichever works best for you. If you're finding this video helpful, please give it a like and consider subscribing. My next tip for you is to paint your embellished prints in batches, meaning to do a whole bunch all at once. If you haven't sold any yet, of course maybe just sell the ones that you use for your photos and then do a bunch. That way you don't end up wasting your supplies if it ends up not being a very popular print. Painting these in batches saves you a lot of time in the long run because when someone orders, you're not having to stop what you're doing to sit down and carefully paint something. You can just pack it up without worrying about it. This is especially ideal if you have a job outside of your Etsy shop because you never know what could happen or how you'll feel. You may not feel like painting at the end of a long workday. The first few times that I sold embellished prints, I was actually really nervous about painting them because I wanted them to be perfect. And so my hands were shaking and I was really stressed out. So painting them ahead of time really helps with stuff like that as well. When you're selling embellished prints, I would recommend having a disclaimer in your product description saying that the item that the person receives may not be identical to the one shown in the listing photos due to the hand-painted nature of it. We are people and not robots, and it's impossible for us to paint the exact same thing every single time, so there's going to be slight differences in where the paint ends up and the thickness of it and stuff like that. Just be sure to emphasize that that's part of the special and unique nature of these hand embellished prints. Next, think about your pricing. Be sure to charge enough that it's worth your time and supplies to do this. A little bit of paint can go a long way, so I would consider charging by how many you're able to do in a set amount of time. For example, if you can do 10 paintings in 1 hour, then think of a fair hourly rate for yourself and divide that by 10 prints and use that as the additional amount that you'll charge for these prints on top of your normal print price. I used to charge a lot less for these embellished prints, but when I didn't have any on hand and I had to stop what I was doing to make them, it felt very tedious and I realized that I was making way below what was a reasonable amount for the time that it takes to do this. So definitely charge whatever feels right for you. People who appreciate the effort will be happy to pay for it, and people who don't will just buy the standard version of the print. Next, be sure to let your prints dry completely before you pack them away or ship them off. Again, it would be really sad to smear something and mess up all that hard work and lose out on the money that you could make from these supplies. And finally, if you use Etsy, here's how to add the embellishment option to your listings. So on an individual listing page, you'll scroll down almost to the bottom to where it says variations and you'll click on add a variation. I set up my size options first because if I was a buyer, that's what I would want to choose first. And then I'll add a second variation, scrolling all the way down to create new variation. This allows me to customize it, so I'm going to go ahead and have it say add hand-painted embellishment. And then I try and give clear options that are either add embellishment or no embellishment or embellished print or standard print. And you'll notice I checked the box on the side that says prices vary. That's what's going to allow me to do a markup for these embellished prints. You could also check the vary quantity box if you want to only offer a limited amount of embellished prints. Save and continue, and then it's important to assign photos to your variation so that buyers can see the differences. It'll ask you to choose what variation you want to show, and I choose to do it by the embellishment option since the size is pretty self-explanatory. If you don't have photos ready, you can always save the listing as a draft and add them in later. From here, you'll add the prices that you decided on, set your quantities, and then hit publish. These options will appear in drop-down menus on your product page just like this. I hope this gave you some ideas for how you can customize your art prints and add more options for your customers. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.